International Lixil University Architecture Competition and also Symposium of the seventh competition's theme. I would like to serve as MC, and my name is Shikada. I'm the chief editor at Shinkenchiku. Allow me to sit down. Now, before we start, we would like to make some announcements from the Secretariat. First, please make sure to turn off your cellular phone or set it to manner mode. And also, today's event is now broadcasted through Ustream, so you may appear on the screen. If there is a problem, please let us know. And also, except for the staff members of the organizers and press people, please refrain from taking pictures or recording audio or visual of this event. Thank you. So today I would like to first talk about the intention of this event and also the agenda today. This international competition is the international competition with the designated participants to explore the question of what is the next generation sustainable house. Every year we select a specific theme to solicit proposals, and the grand prize is allowed to be built in this premises of Memu Meadows under the supervision of Kengo Kuma and Associates. This competition this year is the sixth time already. Waseda University's Machi Matou Ie, which translates literally the house which wears the town, and also Keio University's Barn House, Harvard University's Horizon House, University of California, Berkeley's Nest We Grow, and also University of Architecture and Design's Inverted House have been built. Now, this year, the sixth competition was held under the theme Comfort and Lightness, and 12 universities from 10 countries participated. And July this year in Tokyo, the final public screening was done, and there the Royal Danish Academy of Fine Arts Infinite Field was selected as grand prize. Today we would like to hear from the presenter, the team of the Royal Danish Academy of Fine Arts to make the presentation of the project. And also the seventh competition kickoff will be done, including the discussion by the jury members. But before we start, we would like to have the board director, Mr. Yoichiro Ushoda from Lixil JDS Foundation, to give us an opening remark. Thank you very much for coming to attend this event. Earlier, I saw the Royal Danish Academy of Fine Arts, the Infinite Field, a portable house. I was really impressed. Wonderful work, and I'm looking forward to hear from you your thought behind this project. And today, we're going to announce the seventh competition's theme, and so that's why I'm looking forward to hear from the jury members about their thoughts on next year's theme as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Ushioda. Now we would like to introduce to you the guests. First, we have Mayor Taikicho, Mr. Masato Sakamori. Also from Taikicho, we have Deputy Mayor, Mr. Mikio Nunome. Also from the Town Council, we have Chair, Mr. Chiaki Suzuki. Nice to meet you. Also from the Town Council, we have Deputy Chair, Mr. Chiaki Yuzuhara. And from Hokkaido Development Bureau, we have Mr. Akihiro Taniho, who is Chief Facilities Expert in Obihiro Development Construction Department. From Yukijirushi Snow Brand Meg Milk Company Limited, we have Mr. Sadanori Hashimoto, who is the manager of Taiki plant. Thank you very much. So now, let me introduce to you the jury members for the 6th Lixil International University Architecture Competition. First, the chair is Mr. Kengo Kuma, who is an architect and also professor at University of Tokyo. Professor Tomura Yashiro from Tokyo University Institute of Industrial Science. We have Professor Masato Araya, who is a structural engineer and also honorary professor at Waseda University. We have also Professor Yoshiharu Tsukamoto, who is architect and also professor at the Graduate School of Tokyo Institute of Technology. We have also Professor Dana Bantrock, who is an architect and also a professor at University of California at Berkeley. And also we have the Professor Darko Radovic from Keio University, who was an instructor for the team who won the grand prize in the second competition. Thank you so much for waiting. And now we would like to hear from the team behind the infinite field. They are from Royal Danish Academy of Fine Arts, and Mr. Benjamin Tan and Ms. Jessie Thomas will give us a presentation for 15 minutes.
Hello. Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon. My name is Ben, and this is Jessie. We are students from the Royal Danish Academy of Fine Arts, Copenhagen. Our team consisted of 6 international architecture students from 5 different countries. Architecture, Australia, Greece, the UK, Japan, and Holland. And we think this diversity played an important role in the creation of a strong concept in response to this year's brief of comfort and lightness. Combining the 5 alternate cultural interpretations of the brief was one of the longest but most rewarding processes of the project, as the team strove to combine the strongest elements and approaches from our native cultures and individual knowledge bases in the production of our design.
In response to this year's brief of comfort and lightness, we were challenged to rethink the compact solutions of living in proximity to nature, aiming to renew human contact with the environment that is often lost in the urban condition. With a major focus on the natural environment, our project's investigations began by researching Taikicho, its climatic characteristics and surrounding landscapes. We were fascinated by the extreme climatic changes and the poetic beauty of each season. The snow in winter, the trees that sprout and grow from spring to summer, and the patchwork landscape of farms and crops surrounded by the sea and mountains. Drawing parallels between the climate of Taikicho and Copenhagen, the team saw the similarities as an opportunity to engage with Japanese design and cultural strengths and the long-standing relationship with Japanese and Danish design. We wanted the design to be treated not only as a piece of architecture, but also as a piece of furniture, highlighting the traditions of craftsmanship and woodworking that are common both in Japanese and Danish culture.
Working at the Royal Danish Academy of Fine Arts campus, the team was constantly surrounded by other artistic and design fields. This daily interaction with students and professionals from various fields became an integral part of the design approach and process. The team was influenced by fashion, furniture, architecture, and textile design, to name a few. And it is by looking at the project through the lens of different fields and at each of their scales that we were able to produce our design. Our initial search for inspiration pushed us to research fashion designers such as Izzy Miyake and Alexander McQueen, furniture designers such as Matthias Pleisnig, traditional structures like the Mongolian yurts, various boat builders, and of course a wide range of architectural projects and installations. As the design evolved, we were fortunate to test these initial ideas through various mediums, as we were able to jump on sewing machines, into the wood workshops, and of course using models and sketches at various scales. A lot of these initial concepts were far removed from the structure you see in Mimi Meadows today, as the team explored concepts of tensegrity, foldable architecture, and rotational flat pack structures. On a more unique side, we also looked at implementing large pockets of water above users, long solar collection surfaces, and regrowing greenhouse structures as thermal measures and methods of environmental connection.
Our Infinite Field project aimed to engage in occupants' participation with nature in a greater scale, with the design providing a constant connection with the user's surrounding, thereby allowing constant awareness of Taikicho's natural phenomena. Stepping away from traditional housing models, the structure extends threshold by removing fixed solid walls, instead treating the experience as a sequence of graduated soft textural elements. We aim to create a retreat of comfort and lightness while protecting against the extreme environments which are inherent to Mimu Meadows.
Hokkaido's natural phenomena catalyzed the project's design decisions, as the dwelling draws on the snow fields, prevailing winds, sun reflections, and visual elements and diamond dust that are all characteristic to the site. At a larger scale, we are inspired by the rivers that flow from inland to the coast, the forests you can see around us, and the mountains across Hokkaido. This focus on harnessing the site's natural phenomena allowed the design to act as a filter to the elements, providing users varied environmental exposures and creating a primitive experience in nature. These experiences change with the seasons as the dwelling adapts to deal with the diverse conditions while allowing users to choreograph areas to suit personal comfort levels. Working with textile architecture in an environment where the temperatures are so drastic, thermal layering became particularly important as the team used computer simulations of Hokkaido's summer and winter to ensure the membranes provided adequate comfort in the cold and warmth.
The project's various textile membranes are implemented at intervals, inviting nature in and allowing the design to move and breathe with the seasons. As you transition across the platform, users can operate membranes, moving them to add or remove barriers between the environment and themselves. The three membranes begin with a light mesh to a heavier linen fabric, hence offering different spatial combinations and tactile experiences. On warm days, the two heavier fabrics can be pulled aside to allow air to pass more freely, cooling the users and allowing less visual separations. In less favorable weather, the three fabrics can be implemented simultaneously, enclosing the users for warmth and comfort. When used in conjunction with one another, the fabrics create areas of still air, providing better thermal performance for the central space.
Throughout the process, the design adapted to integrate a shorter roof, emphasizing the project's 360-degree view out from the interior. The membrane of the roof is formally carved by the prevailing winds on site. This holds its form through the use of 4 aluminium profile rings, giving more strength to the lightweight roof, while also protecting it in extreme environments. Within the interior space of the membrane, there is a secondary textile layer made up of softer, more lightweight materials. This internal space aims to be an ephemeral and peaceful place to rest and experience the natural surroundings. As Hokkaido's ground-level diamond dust reflects the sunlight, the structure's raised external textile membrane showcases the clouds of ice crystals glittering in the surroundings during winter from the comfort of the platform's interior. It is from this exterior membrane and its rings that the 3 operable curtains are hung. Additionally, the exterior membrane also supports a series of silk fabric blades.
These shorter blades adopt a dual purpose. Experientially, the silk fabric blades hang from the inner lining of the membrane, allowing the users to perceive gentle winds and airflow through the dwelling as they gently sway and flutter in the breeze. Thermally, these layers also help to maintain the microclimates within the shelter. The blades slow and trap air, disrupting escaping heat and maintaining the temperature of the dwelling. As people transition from the interior to the exterior, they pass through these envelopes of gradiated layers, which enclose the central heat source of the hibachi in the middle of the platform. It is from this inner nest where users can relax in the harsh winters.
Visitors inhabit a raised platform, providing panoramic views to the surrounding natural context. This elevated vantage point is aligned with the region's average snowfall in winter as users are treated to views over an infinite sea of snow. During the summer, the platform allows for a place to rest and enjoy quiet contemplation, looking out onto a field of wild grasses, trees, and bright blue skies.
People invited... What?
Throughout periods of heavy snowfall, packed snow builds up, sealing the space under the platform, creating a passive air gap. while in summer the elevated space provides cooling as wind passes freely under the structure.
People are invited to utilize the ergonomic seating structure that is integrated into the timber platform. Enclosing the nest area, it allows the inhabits the space in various positions, creating a more comfortable and varied experience while improving the habitability of the platform. This livability is further enhanced by the team's design of a series of circular cushions that are intended to be used when kneeling around the hibachi or sitting on the platform.
Entering off the ground, users arrive onto the curved, large platform. Leaving their shoes and wet clothes to dry in the entrance or hanging from the wind rods extending from the center of the space, they feel the timber boards bend and creak slightly as they transition to the center of the platform. Stepping into this nest area, people are surrounded by the different layers of fabric. It is in this central zone that people can sleep, relax, eat, and enjoy the warmth radiating from the hibachi. Acting as the heart of the design, this is a space where people can enjoy each other's company around the integrated table as they are invited to lift or lower the table to suit their needs. This zone is also host to the project's primary structure.
Conceived as a prefabricated kit of parts, the tripod structure stands erected in the center of the platform, supporting the hoisted textile membrane, while the footings of the platform's timber modules are laid out around these three self-supporting poles. Located upon these three glue-laminated timber platforms are the winches which are used to raise and lower the membrane exterior. The platform base is split into 12 timber wedges, which allow easily assembly and disassembly of the structure with relative ease.
Ultimately, Infinite Field is conceived as a permeable experience, one where users are in control of their surroundings while still being aware of the natural phenomena characteristic to Mimu Meadows. The team wants people to dictate their conditions, wrapping themselves in and wearing the various textile membranes, or sweeping them aside to embrace the seasons. We have continually sought to create an architecture of change and gradation, allowing users to experience and enjoy the changing environment in comfort, while simultaneously enhancing our human connection to the surroundings. As you can see before you, the design has continued to evolve, constantly changing to adapt to and incorporate new information, elements, and requirements. We have all learnt so much from the competition and the construction process, and it has been an absolute joy seeing the project develop from initial sketches in Copenhagen to a physical structure here in Mimu Meadows.
We obviously could not have completed this without an enormous amount of assistance and support. The team would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for coming out to Mimu Meadows to support us in the opening ceremony of the structure. A big thank you to our professor, Anders Brix, for his patience and guidance throughout this whole project. Finally, we would like to thank Lixil Foundation, Kengo Kuma Architects, Oak Structures for their engineering support, Hirakawa for his amazing building construction work, and for making this experience possible. We look forward to seeing next year's competition and what they're able to produce. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So now we would like to have comments from the jury members once again. And of course, you can ask questions if you are interested. Can we start with you, Professor Kuma? Yes. In the ceremony, the preview, I said already this comment earlier, that the word in between, it's in between the architecture, tent, furniture, and clothes. In between a lot of things. I think you are targeting at this border between many things. That was very, very interesting. Then Professor Araya was saying that it was demanding and challenging in terms of the structural engineering. I believe he was meaning this in the center is going out like an umbrella where there's no column supporting at the edge. That was really challenging, I believe. But then you don't have the columns around the surface, and that's why we have the infinite view. So when you are targeting at the boundary, at the same time you are getting rid of the columns around the edge. That's really interesting because supporting the structure with the central columns alone is really challenging in terms of structural engineering. Now, this is after all an architecture in that sense. But what was genial is that even if you go in and look upside, the structure is bent nicely, and it's integrated with the tent, so you don't really have the big or heavy sense of presence. And so it's costly, I believe, in terms of the structure. But on the surface, when you go inside the structure or the building, you don't really feel the heavy presence of the structure. It's not like it's student project like. I mean, it's amazing. What do you think?
About the structure.
Thank you. That's, I guess, what we were aiming for when we started. It was a major concern, I think, because the project is so small. We were worried that if you have these 3 large columns in the middle, we were worried that they would dominate the space. So it is really nice to hear that you don't think that is happening.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Thank you. じゃあ次や
Professor Yashiro, can we have your comment as well? Well, listening to you and seeing your presentation, I feel that probably you worked really hard in your wood workshop in Copenhagen. There was a process of that in the pictures, and that was really impressive. The thing that you studied and experimented there resulted in the work in Memo Meadows. There are a lot of people who use computers alone, but your manual work and your thinking effort with hands resulted in work, and that really realized what Professor Kuma described. I have one question. This floor, the way you built the floor, original idea was the floor that looks really light, which probably made with NC cutters. But then this time, the actual floor was made by the cedar lumbers, made almost by Japanese carpenters, I believe. What do you feel after you see that difference or having that final shape? What's your impression now?
Say, because we were moving the project from Denmark, where it was conceived, to Japan, there was obviously new influences that we could draw on. And having the relationship between Danish and Japanese crafting became really important to us, because it meant that we could, I guess, initially start with all of these Danish timbers and things like that, and how, the Danish designers approached it, and then come over to Japan and see how the Japanese would approach the design as a whole. So it brought a lot and a different perspective to the project, which was really important to us, because our initial processes started by drawing on so many fields. So having the Japanese influence was really welcome.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
Diplomat. でも今の答えではい満足しました。はい。
But it was really, I'm really satisfied with your comment. Thank you. Professor Arya, what do you think? From the perspective of structural engineering, I talked about the engineering aspect at the preview, but in Memo Meadows premises, I see your work. And it's really boundary between the furniture, building, and tent. But over the years, I think the projects and works are coming closer and closer to the furniture side, and things that are really easily absorbed and integrated into the landscape, the nature. I think there is that trend. Now, talking about that process from the engineers, architecture engineers, I have the impression that the projects are getting more demanding. Even if you say it's like a furniture, you have to house people, you have to accommodate people, so there's certain minimum scale required. So I'm sure when you are making mock-up and when you are making a real thing, the sense of scale must be different. So I would like to ask you, what was your feeling when you realized there's a different sense of scale when it came from the mock-up to the real thing?
Yeah. I think, yeah, continually when we were doing the mock-up, we were testing things at a one-to-one scale and really engaged with the difference between what a chair would feel like at 400 millimeters versus 350, and the subtle differences that may not have come through in the small mock-up, but it was always in our mind that it was going to be a one-to-one eventually. So I think to see it and to see that our tests and experiments actually paid off in this final built form is really rewarding, I think, for all of us to have these, weird tests that we were doing with foam blocks, and really, to see them as a final piece of timber is, extremely satisfying.
もう一つは、
Another thing is, from design to the real physical buildings, the period of the time was really, really short, and yet you could deliver it. So my impression is that if you had another 3 months or 6 months, maybe you could have built it in a more sophisticated way or perfected it further. What's your impression after that? Are you happy with what you have, or you wish you had more time to make it more sophisticated?
Yeah, I think every designer would always do things slightly different if they had a second opportunity. But I think, the whole team is incredibly satisfied with what we have. And if given the opportunity to recreate it or, have, I don't know, built it in different circumstances would be amazing. But there are always things that could be improved or done better or, but all in all, I think it's a extremely satisfying outcome. And we've learnt an incredible amount about what it takes to get a building constructed in 3 months from pretty much the other side of the world. Like the amount of time and effort is I have no way of expressing how much work is put in to actually make this possible, and so many people in this room are to thank for that. So in that regard, it's been an amazing experience.
それを聞いて僕もさて
Well, I'm so happy to hear that comment as well. Thank you.
やっぱり難しい
Professor Arya, did you find the work very challenging as a structure designer this time?
新井さんにとってもチャレンジな、はい、
Yes, it was. In what aspect? Can you elaborate on that? Well, first, as Professor Kuma was saying, there's no columns supporting the peripherals, the edge. That's one thing. But also membrane structure. You tend to want to look light. So, but when you do estimation, when you do evaluation, it's the opposite. Often the membrane structure is heavier. So, in order to make it light or look light, you have to really think. And there's a lot of unknown elements. Sometimes you think that there are a lot of unclear things even in academia, and even if you don't know the answer theoretically, I had to make a lot of heuristics, knowledge or know-how based on experiment to try different things. I don't know if it is the right opportunity to say it, but since this is a wonderful work, in the future, especially, I think we should take care of wind. I would love to measure the wind impact as an academia or as a professor at a university. I would love to do some measurement of the wind. And you were referring to it at the preview, Professor Yashiro and I am talking about it together, and we would love to do some study about the wind impact. Maybe we can come up with I'm sure we will be able to make a report in the form of an academic paper. Okay. Professor Tsukamoto, please. I also said this in the preview. initially at the competition, at the review, I mean, I was imagining this to be a big piece of furniture. But then now, when I look at the real thing, the real work, it looked like a boat to me with a mast. And that fabric is like a mast of the boat. And then the floor is extending towards the landscape. And probably that's why I felt the impression of a boat. And because architecture, but at the same time, architecture tends to be an industrial object, and you tend to try to answer all the requirements of any opportunities throughout the day, but by making it something like a boat, you can free yourself up from the obligation to answer any kind of requirements. When the water is calm, you can enjoy calm water, and when it's really stormy, you don't just go out in the ocean, and that's why probably you could make it lighter and allow the inhabitants to enjoy the landscape. But my worry is because this is like a boat, maybe if there's a big wind, strong wind, this starts to move. Professor Araya, what is the maximum wind load can this sustain? Well, not only me, but also the manufacturer of the membrane company's point of view. Probably up to 10 or 15 minutes per second, this can sustain. But beyond that, it's an uncharted territory. So there are a lot of unclear, unknown factors. So if there's a strong wind, you can fold it. Or you could put some reinforcement by rope. Like in the case of boats, you would bring down the fabric. Or you could reinforce it with a rope. The cap at the top, if it is taken out, it is removed. No, it won't do. No, it won't solve the problem. So there's a rings supported, but the joint is like a flat spring, and the top is supported by the winch. So it is hung. So it sways. If you push the columns, it sways. Is it okay? Or push the membrane? It's okay. It's okay to swing it. That it swings because it absorbs some wind load. But one of our staff members saying that it's with swinging. How big does it wing? Well, that's something we're trying to see. Okay, so what do you think? I have a question to the team members from Denmark. If you live in Japan, somehow, over the time, in many cases, wind defines buildings. Even without thinking, we tend to think that this is the approximate maximum level of wind that you have to sustain in building, or the building should be able to sustain this much of wind. But if you go to other countries like Indonesia, they don't really have a lot of typhoons. So there are a lot of very lightweight structures. And I see, those buildings wouldn't be there if it is built in Japan because we have so much typhoons in Japan. But if you go to other countries, we see those light buildings because the typhoons don't come. What's your country? What is it like in Denmark? I mean, when you thought about this building, were you conscious about the wind load? I mean, you're not all from Denmark because you are an international team. But how much concern did you have about, how conscious were you about wind?
So we're both from Australia, but we have been living in Denmark for the last 6 months or almost a year now. And I think wind was obviously a concern. You know, we got so much environmental data when the competition was first released. So the shape of the building and the, I guess, the egg form to it was initially conceived to, you know, deal with the streamlining of the wind and things like that. So that process obviously evolved as we worked with Araya and across the project in Japan. And, you know, there's systems in place now. Obviously, with the winches, you can lower the whole thing and release the wind rods to take it down in heavy winds. But we considered it, and, you know, we tried to do the best job we could with letting that dictate some of the formal aspects of it as well.
How about Thomas?
Yeah, I think we could just put it down to being slightly naive students in this respect and not fully understanding what a typhoon in Japan was capable of. Yeah, and we took a risk, and luckily we had an amazing engineer that could help us make it actually happen. But yeah, it was considered, but it was considered more for an experience rather than a structural point of view. Yeah, it's like you said, we had all this data from the competition brief, and was our first point of departure, I guess, really studying what that would mean and our best sort of ways of dealing with some of those things. But yeah, we had none of us have designed many things in Japan before, so I think as a first trial run, we'll see how it goes.
Hopefully no typhoons hit.
Yeah.
はい、じゃあ続きまして。
Thank you. So, Dana, please.
で話しさせていただきますけど、I actually have a very different kind of question. I don't want to talk about the building as an object so much as the experience of the competition. Lixil is, I think, the world's largest building products company and very international. And I know when my students won in 2014, many people were very surprised. I think that was the first year that the teams were all of a sudden not representative of the nations the schools came from. So my students were from Taiwan and China and England and the United States. And you guys, the same thing. The UK, Greece, the Netherlands, Japan, Australia. Nobody from Denmark, right? And somehow, and here we are too, right? Both Kuma-san and Tsukamoto-san have very international practices. I'm sitting up here as somebody not from Japan. And a lot has sort of happened to practice in these last 3 years. There's a much more international outlook. There's an expectation that architects your age have to be conversant in other languages and able to adapt to new places. And so I'm curious what you feel you take away from this that prepares you better for the global lives that you're going to have.
I think, to begin with, I might slightly have a tangent from that, but I still remember at the screening or the presentation that we did in Tokyo, and we were talking about just the translation of the brief from Japanese to English and how that was possibly, the cause of the different outcomes from the team. And I think that idea of translation and what things mean for different cultures and languages was an amazing opportunity to work as this diverse team in a country that none of us are actually from, and what that could mean for the design as a point to begin with. We've had to all learn so many things culturally from one another and from Danish and Japanese culture as well. So from that point of view, I think it's been incredibly rich for the entire team to have to deal with some of these issues very upfront, I guess, yeah, to begin with. Going forwards, maybe.
Well, I think, like Jesse touched on, because we are all so international, it, I guess, was really interesting for us to hammer down and start looking at Danish and Japanese cultures because we hadn't grown up in it. It was more of a unique experience where it was completely new to us. So working out of Copenhagen and, you know, with, like, the school has these amazing workshops and the staff who are always so helpful, allowed us to really jump in and, you know, with very little background in workshops, a lot of us, you know, were able to just jump straight in and work on the 1 to 3 and, you know, build it on the big machines in the wood workshops, things like that. I think, secondly, I guess because you're working so internationally and because it is so global nowadays and so easy to move around the world, you know, you can jump on a plane and be the other side of the world in a day. It, I guess, makes us more confident. Well, personally, makes me more confident that, you know, one day I might jump on the plane and end up on the other side of the world and be working over there. So that's, I think, big for all of us.
Does anyone want to say anything on that?
Guys, things you learned?
Do you have some comments?
Yeah. I think, like, one thing which Ben, for instance, and Jesse already touched upon was the translation of the brief, because we have one Japanese team member, and then to see the mere difference in translating that brief and just the meaning of the title, Comfort and Lightness, through the Japanese translation into the English translation, there was this difference in meaning and also in the depth of the title. There was like a sort of an underlying message in the Japanese title, which we could have never known without Kazu's help translating the brief. And I guess there's like small things like these things which every single member of the team brought to the design. And I think these small, like, unique cultural differences of interpreting the information and translating it into a physical reality is something which we have accomplished as a very diverse team. And also having all of us had, like, practical experience in different countries as well, in Denmark and Japan, and etc. Like, sort of the way of developing the project from a sketch towards detailing, etc. For everyone, they had a slightly different nuance in their head, and to learn from each other and to see how, if you're actually saying the same thing with the same words, how it can mean something else. I think that has been a super valuable experience for everyone. And I think everyone will take that and hopefully become awesome architects in the near future.
You? いいですか? Okay, thank you. じゃあ皆さんありがとうございました。
Thank you very much. So we heard from the team members, the students, but may we have comment from the instructor, Professor Anders Briggs, please?
Yes, truly the world of architects has become very international, and I was surprised myself setting up to find a team to enter this competition, that those students who already were traveling and so on were mostly interested in this, and we got this very international team, and it has been amazing to work with. I think this is all very interesting, that we can be intercultural and we can exchange ideas. And I strongly believe that if we can manage to combine different cultural approaches, then we can further develop our approach to the world as such. But on the other hand, I think also that we should consider not to mix up cultural influences just by leisure, because we might in the end then erase the very cultural differences that are so valuable. So that's also something I think about from time to time. I'm not saying that this is happening at all. I'm just thinking that the way I think about it is perhaps not to mix images or something, but to mix deeper thinking, that in order to develop further. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
そうしましたら、審査員の方、
Okay, so is there any other comments or questions from the jury members? If not, we would like to receive questions from the floor. So, actually, with us, we have Professor Darko Radovic with us. May we have a comment from you?
It's always a minefield when you ask me, do I have a comment, because they tend to be long. But I will give up one which I really wanted to make, and because I am really inspired by this discussion about that Dana started and then continued with these issues of translation, and now beautifully said by these words of caution, what are we doing? I live and teach in Japan, and that what this question for many is asking is my daily question. The impossibility of translation. The translation theory deals with that. There is no equivalence between languages. Even if we translate what we believe is a little bit more successful translation, is it? Is it better to creatively misunderstand than to understand or to seek some impossible fake understanding? That is a beautiful field of ideas, and with my students I'm really trying to push that to the extreme, because I am not learning Japanese language, I'm learning about Japanese language, and they are Japanese, and that opens some interesting themes. I would really encourage students, and that is why I took this question on, because you said that it is now world is so global, and we are more confident to move. Imagine my self-confidence when I moved to a country to become an illiterate professor. But to move confidently to do what? And how to do it. That is very, very important, because we are really in the danger. We are thinking about globalized world, but how not to flatten the earth. And that is what we are often asked to do, especially under the imperatives of technology and global capital and all that, flattening the earth and reducing everything to images. So that's, I think I would just join and encourage everybody to think about this issue, this question without answer. Because searching answers is something that you also attempted in this project, and I think, in that sense it is good. My only comment about the project itself would be, and yes, this just what I wanted to ask something about that picture, it went off. Maybe I shouldn't ask. But it would be interesting to me, because I haven't heard your presentation, I couldn't come to the jury session. So this was the first time that I heard the presentation, and it would be very interesting to me to also hear an updated presentation. Because what I see in your presentation is not what I see built. And that difference is something that would be fascinating to understand. And in some of the questions, there was already a hint at that. Are you disappointed? Or have you discovered something better than what you were searching? It happens. Sometimes we stumble accidentally upon quality which we are not able to conceive. That is something that I would like to see, but that applies to every project done so far. Each of these projects has gone through a number of compromises. Do compromises make things better, or just different, or have you lost something which is irrecoverable, although the building is, of course, something that is your child and you are proud of? This comes in the right moment, just this shape. If I was a member of the jury, I would fall in love with this shape, but not with this one on the side. Anyway, long discussion. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much. Do you have a comment about this? Ludwig's comment? You have answered.
Well, I think with every project or every project I've ever known, you move from initial ideas to final construction, and there's going to be compromises, there's going to be changes, and it's going to grow, and that's what brings the nuance to the project. And obviously, I think most designers would look back on their projects, and there's something about us where we're always a little bit like, oh, I could improve that, oh, maybe I could improve that. But the project needs to be built. Things have to eventually come to an end, and you have to stop designing at some point. So I wouldn't say you can wholly judge it as this is bad or this is good. I would say there's different elements that maybe we wanted to incorporate, and maybe different crafting details. But then there's also things on the other hand which we had never considered when we started designing the project. And for one thing, structurally it would not have stood up when we first started. So having all of these informations and better qualified or more experienced people to help us grow the project is, I think, very important in any process, I think, in any design process.
Thank you. そうしましたら会場で他に、
Okay, is there any question from the floor? It's a great opportunity to ask questions to the members of the team who built it. This time, actually, we have some students from University of Tokyo Fine Arts who are going to participate in the next competition. Do you share with us your thoughts about this project? I know, I didn't warn you beforehand. I know, okay, well, I see a hand raised. Thank you.
Today, I saw this project. I really like it, especially the fabric material. I stand inside to throw the fabric. I saw the scenery around the project. It's quite beautiful. I really like it. I just ask one thing that I'm also a foreigner here, and maybe a little bit consider the nature and the people, the relationship between the nature and people, or the architecture, maybe a little bit different from the Japanese. And what's your opinion about this relationship? That's it. Thank you very much.
It's very difficult.
Well, yeah, like Jesse just mentioned, we can't comment from the Danish perspective, but maybe from an Australian. But I think personally, growing up around so many natural excursions, I had all my camps and things like that out in the Australian outback. That connection that you have, and the difference between standing in a city at its most basic, the difference between standing in a city and looking at the night sky versus standing in the fields here where there is little light pollution and being able to see all the stars is something that's I guess very moving or very important to me. And I think the competition itself and what the foundation stands for in looking at connecting people back to nature and away from the urban environment is such an important thing to do in this day and age where cities continue to grow and grow and grow. So from our project standpoint, we looked at a lot of sensory things and how the little things when you go out into a field and whether it's just the smell of the grass or the wind like it is today in your hair, it's the little things when you're stepping into nature. So I think that's what we tried to incorporate into design and really showcase in the elements of it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
他に質問あります？
Any other question? No? Well, if not, we would like to. Okay, I see a hand.
ランドスケープアーキテクトの高野です。今日のお話の中で、学生さんも審査員の方々の中にその環境と建築という言葉がたくさん出てきました。風景という言葉も出てきてました。
In your presentation, I heard the landscape and or the nature and people, landscape and architecture. Now, if your project is placed on the hill, and if you have the tall grass that comes to your hip, what would happen? During the springtime, you have yellowish or green surrounding the structure, and in summer there's some flowers. In autumn, the grass will turn yellow or red, and it will be like a boat floating on the ocean of grass. Now, I have an impression that this competition go into the next stage to deepen the thought about the relationship between the architecture and landscape. In that sense, I think you should. I have an opinion to obligate make it an obligation, mandatory to put landscape part role in the project, and of course with a budget, and that would make it even more interesting. Of the very interesting architectures have been selected as a grand prizes in the past, but I think they could have been even better if you had other landscape elements around it.
ありがとうございます。参考に。
Thank you very much for your great input. So now I think we've run out of the time. I thank you so much for your participation. So, we would like to start the discussion on the 7th competition theme after a break of 10 minutes. Thank you very much for waiting. Now we would like to open the kickoff symposium for the 7th competition. Up front, we have Professor Kuma, who would be the chair of the jury, and also we have Mr. Noshiro. We have Professor Noshiro and Professor Bandro, and then who also will be the jury members. And we have Professor Shinya and Araya, and also Professor Tsukamoto as well. Now, let me read the theme of the next competition. It's spa in the nature, the public baths of ancient Rome, the great bath in Pakistan's Mohenjo-daro, Germany's Baden-Baden, England's city of baths, Finnish saunas and Japanese onsen, no steam baths going back to a time before the Middle Ages. There are a variety of bathing customs found throughout the world. Even in earlier times, baths were not merely intended to remove soil and stains. They were also places of social interaction, public spaces, relaxing space like a living room. In a rich natural setting of Taikicho, Hokkaido, what would be a relaxing bath spot be like? One should do more than simply soak. Imagine places to stretch or enjoy massage, stroll through the lush natural setting, dally away a day, or other kinds of activities under a roof or not. Do men and women share spaces? Aren't there a new and untried way of thinking about a bathing spot and its pleasures? Infinite Field, the Royal Danish Academy of Fine Arts, winning design for the 6th International Student Architectural Competition, is a movable pavilion which perhaps might have been a place in a spa-like setting you design. Unlike past years, this theme encourages direct contact of architecture on skin. This new approach may also arouse new ways of employing building materials. For the site, please, water at the site, use water from the nearby river or ocean, or transport hot water from near the onsen, please design a spa where visitors can gather and relax in the nature. The participating universities are not finalized, but currently the participation of Stuttgart universities, IAAC, AA School, Indonesia University, China Academy of Fine Arts, National Changkung University, Sydney University, and Pennsylvania University, Buenos Aires University, Riga Technical University, Kyushu universities in Tokyo, University of Fine Arts, Meiji University, Vienna Technical University, Institute of Technology, and Pennsylvania University are to participate. Some of them are not finalized. Now, the site is not finalized, but all the sites, potential sites are with meadows, and one of the locations was captured by the team members. The floor is yours. This is not here. This is not Memu Meadows. It's just Mac wallpaper. Maybe it's hidden somewhere in the Memu Meadows.
Thank you, everybody. To be honest, the only thing I'm used to use a microphone in Japan is karaoke, but I'm going to spare you my singing and do a presentation on the site analysis of next year's competition. First of all, the theme for next year's competition is, as previously mentioned, spa in the nature. And it will also be at Memu Meadows, where we are today. And we thought we did a lot of site analysis, especially on the phenomenological aspects of the site. And we would like to do that again, sort of for next year's competition, and also try to focus on aspects of next year's competition. The things we used to focus on were, for instance, climate, the sensation of the weather, the flatness of the site, the snow, and the crops. Taking what we have experienced here in Hokkaido, we would like to present an inspirational analysis of both next year's theme and its relation to the site. Well, first of all, seeing spa, it's also something related with nature, which has been like a theme running through all the previous competitions. And for instance, living with nature, minimal primitive living, and living with the weather have all been discussed. However, cleansing is also an essential part of nature, just as you see in this kind of cute photo. And the question is how to make this cleansing part of nature and part of the qualities of the site. And for instance, one thing one could look at is something which is embedded in Japanese culture, which is the onsen and also the sento. And one thing which is a really important theme in both of these is that cleansing can be both physical and mental. And how do you deal with that? How do you make an experience which is both bodily and spiritual in a way? And linked to the philosophy of clean body and clean mind, the building might act as a space of serenity. And with that, filtering out some elements of the context and letting through some other elements of the context, just like Kuma-san's building you can see in this picture. And through serenity, one might create a unity with nature. our design tried to focus on integrating the protagonist with the landscape through filtering and opening up a 360-degree view. It is, however, in this case, not sufficient just to open up. Cleansing also means getting naked, and that would also imply certain sequences of privacy in the future design. So how do you deal with both letting nature in and creating an air of privacy? Like the previous competition winners, the main concept of the building might be to experience the elements, but the question is, what are those elements? And are they the weather changes as proposed by our design, or are they artificially created conditions created by a space to bath? I mean, with the fairly extreme climate differences between winter and summer at this site, there's a lot of inspiration one could take to utilize that in a future design. As one can also see in this image of Peter Zumthor's design, where essentially like the moisture creates sort of a cloud of mist in the building, but it also sort of filters into the misty clouds of the mountains and thus settles the design into the landscape through very poetic means. And there might be a lot of opportunities to do this at the site as well. And as well, it's about a place to become part of nature. Obviously, here in Iceland, there's already a beautiful landscape in place, which makes you, as the protagonist, being part of the nature, a completely natural experience. But the challenge will be how to do this here at maybe Meadows. And at the same time, it could be a place for interaction. Something completely opposite to Japanese culture is, in this case, the Scandinavian sauna, where there is no separation between the sexes. And actually, because everyone is naked, it becomes sort of a democratic space. So it's a place to be equal. Like, there are no more boundaries of clothes or class or sex. And you could utilize this as well as a starting point to make it a space for interaction. Or, in a more Asian way, it could be a place for procession, something which you walk through, or a process to go through to clean yourself within a spatial sequence. As long as it keeps having a relationship with clean body and clean mind. Coming back to the site, the next year's site will be located pretty close to here. It's the marked area on the top left corner yeah, you can see it over here. That's okay, Kazi. And the challenge will be how to interact with the landscape. Are you going to create like a view, which we did, like a panorama? Or are you going to create something which interacts in the landscape on a more physical scale, which would be possible as well? And then, as previously mentioned, it could be a place for procession. Since there's already sort of a movement in place at the location of next year's competition, it sort of could ask for a series of events happening. So instead of creating spaces, you're creating places which host different functions and which give a certain identity to those spaces. And then again, it's placed on this curved track. And what is it that there is in the center? Can you actually start defining the blank canvas in the center through the building, and apart from giving the building an identity, also give an identity to the site? So apart from taking qualities from the site, can you add something to the site? And then again, it could be a place of circulation. As previously mentioned, there is a sort of a hint of movement in the site? And could this be something which, or could the future design be something which is an initiator, an incubator to start a longer process? And those are all questions which I think for next year's competition might be central issues. And taking all these inspirations from different cultures into account like we did as a team from each other could be a great starting point for future endeavors as well. So we hope and wish the best of luck to next year's teams and like to thank you for your attention.
どうもありがとうございました。敷地のこと。
Thank you very much. So it was not only about the site, but also you mentioned the influences of different cultures and also inspirations that can work at a certain point. So next year, what would be a great hint, trigger to start thinking about this theme, spa in the nature or bath? Professor Kuma, first? I knew that someday we had to tackle this question of bath here. Well, food, eating, it's already been chosen in a sense in the past. Food is a type of dialogue between the nature and people, but bath is more, could be more direct, could be more physical, and it could be more spiritual and mental at the same time. How to design that is interesting. And I thought that one day I wanted to think about this. So this theme is very important theme for the entire competition project. Also, what's interesting is the thinking about bath is very different among countries and cultures. When it comes to food, people talk about Asian food, European food are all different, but how people approach bath could be even more different between cultures, because even if we are living in a globalized age, when things are getting more harmonized at the same time, there are things that cannot be educated people to become globalized and standardized. Am I talking too long? Well, some people get shy without clothes, and there are people who are not shy at all without any clothes in some cultures. According to my experience, German people are not afraid to be without clothes, right? Is that right? Maybe Finnish people in saunas, they're not really afraid. They're not shy. They don't really care. Surprisingly, Italians and Spanish people, you tend to think they don't really care, but they actually are very shy, and they tend to separate women and men. Well, Japanese, I don't think people do really care. I mean, you tend to think Japanese people are really shy, but when it comes to bath, we don't care all of a sudden. But Germans beat us. So it's a delicate thing. I mean, I don't know. Okay, well, you can hold on there, Professor Kuma. But anyway, but Finnish sauna culture is really unique. People drink and in saunas. And at one time at Finnish embassy in Tokyo, I was invited to sauna dinner. Sauna dinner, can you imagine? Before sauna, they place champagne and caviars and smorgasbord kind of things. And so we're supposed to eat and drink a little bit, go into sauna, sweat a little bit, come back, come out, and then continue drinking. That was the dinner. That was so exhausting. And so whereas sitting shoulder to shoulder without clothes. And I've never seen so many middle-aged men without clothes eating in embassy building. So Finnish unique is very, very unique, I believe. And they're using it for diplomatic purpose. in diplomatic meetings, of course, they go to be. Sometimes they invite guests to go to beach, and they place a sauna in the beach. And then they were saying that if you have foreign diplomats have some drinks and have them go into sauna, they will listen to you anyway. And one time they were saying that American diplomat came to Finland, and Americans were told not to go to sauna dinner ever because you end up saying yes to them. But Finnish were cleverer. What they did is they invited the American diplomats to go on a walk alongside the beach, and so the diplomats, the ambassador went there, and then of course there was sauna's cabin prepared there, so he was fired. I don't know if it's true, but I heard that story. So this sauna in the beach is in a way a bath in the landscape. So I think bath in the field in nature is very, very interesting. I know you went sauna or bath just before this meeting. Yes, I'm sorry. I just had to soak myself into the hot bath for even 10 minutes before I came here. Professor Yashiro, what do you think? Well, in Japan, we have a phrase, human networking without any clothes. I think that's what you're referring to, Professor Kuma. I mean, if you go to onsen and sento, you kind of lower the offense, or the defense, and get more frank. Bath is an area where you bring down your defense and be honest. That's a kind of moment we're talking about. Bath, actually, however, is very much influenced by the culture. It's really the approach to bath and bathing depends on culture and civilization heavily. In one country, maybe bathroom is really a private space. On the other hand, I don't know how this is being translated. Naked. I don't know, networking without any clothes. So that's an example of bath being onsen or whatever, which is really a public space. In June, I hear that in a country, people, Finland, summer, they go into lakes. People go to the summer houses during the holidays, and they go in the lakes and swim there. And sauna, although sauna itself is a private space, but it's placed right there on the lake, so people enjoy it during the summer away from cities. So I'm interested in what will happen next year. You saw we do have culture and tradition of onsen and sento. And then next year, the students may study hard about this culture and tradition and try to recreate that here in Taikijo. Well, I don't think that can really make you go far. Rather than that, if you try to use your culture, try to use your own culture and tradition, maybe that will make the whole competition richer. Don't try to fit everything to fit to Japanese way. I think rather you would take this opportunity to make the competition richer by incorporating different cultures. Dana, do you understand? How would you translate networking without clothes would be translated as skinship? But depending on country, of course, different culture of baths exist. But actually, even in Japan, different types of baths exist. Some years ago, I went there in Ibusuki to bathe in beach, which has the area which has the sand, which the sand itself is steamed up by the underground magma activity. And in Hokkaido, on the other hand, well, I don't know exactly, but exactly what is the specific type of bath in Hokkaido. This time I'm looking forward to see some very interesting things. Swiss's Val's bath, when they saw it, mayors and deputy mayors were very much interested. I talked about water, I talked about the bath, and so I think it would be interesting if we have more variety, a wider variety of bath facilities in Japan. But when I think about this theme, last year, you remember the project built by Oso? They have baths outside of the building. We went there to visit the place there, and then I heard people saying that it's difficult to take actually baths here. Of course, this was windy today, and if you don't have any clothes, I thought I don't want to take a bath there because it's really windy. So bath is not bath if that is only bath. I think you need other elements just next to it or surrounding it. I mean, that's my first impression. Professor Araya, what do you think? Can we have your comment? First, I heard the analysis of the theme by students, and I saw some pictures of baths in Japan. I just remember the presence existing of sansuke, people who helped you bathe, people who will pour hot water on your shoulders and massage your shoulders. And can you believe these were male, men who were helping women bathe by pouring hot water from shoulders and massage your shoulders? Can you imagine? I mean, they don't exist they're not sansukes anymore, but I mean, I was talking about old times. But anyway, Indonesia students were participating this time. I believe that type of bath is also influenced by religion. Indonesia, can you believe to have the public baths there? Okay. So they wear clothes. And they're separate. Men and women are separate. Oh, okay. So there's a workaround. So if there's a participation, because we are inviting Indonesia University, they can't. Without any clothes, you can be equal with each other, and everybody can be happy. In some cultures, maybe, but maybe not in some other cultures. But there's a type of bath which is like a drum in Japan where only one person can soak the water in a drum. And so bath can be a very public thing, but also bath can be a very private, personal thing. What do you think, Professor Tsukamoto? I love bath, hot tub. Recently, when I work as a jury member in an international competition, I always push those proposals who focuses on bath. So I wanted to be on a jury members next year. I really wanted to do that. But what is so wonderful about bath is, warn you, I may be wrong this time. For example, let's say I hear that a friend saying that here's a great spa, you should go there. And so I went there, and I find that spa is really almost abandoned, not taken care of. And then so I get worried, it looks so bad. Nobody's taking care of this bath. It's left in and abandoned. And then I take a bath, actually, and I found, yes, it was really a fantastic place. So in that case, I realized, well, architecture is nothing. This hot water counts so much. And in Copenhagen, I always have a problem. That is, Danish people don't really soak their body in hot tub, right? You normally use shower and that's it, right? So I asked the questions, and they say, well, you waste so much water if you put the water in the bathtub. So when I asked them why, well, here's some relationship with the landscape, because in Denmark, the highest altitude is only 360 meters, and they have only 1/3 of the precipitation of rain in comparison with rain. So the amount of water that has the energy due to altitude is really limited. In Japan, on the other hand, a heavy cloud would hit the ocean, not ocean, but the mountain. Then it will make the rain and it go down through streams. So you can use the water without spending a lot of energy. Of course, and then on top of it, there's some volcanoes, so you can have heated water, hot water. So Japanese archipelago has abundance of hot water. So hot bath is influenced by the human activities and culture, and also by the nature itself, the geography itself, geology too. When we think about baths, we tend to think about the bathroom in your house, but actually that's the most accessible nature in your house. So I think a bath can be a very good tool to think about your relationship with nature. The other time I went to Finland and I also experienced sauna. In order to heat up the steam, they would just collect the log in the nearby forest. They will get the water from the nearby lake. If you sweat really hot, you jump in the cold water in the lake. So they just gather around what is available in a near place in order to create a very interesting experience. And by doing so, you almost feel that you're part of the nature. But when we look around our life, everything around us are mostly industrial. You don't know where they come from. You don't know who made them. And so we're surrounded by strange things that we don't know who made them. On the opposite, it was almost shocking to find that they could find things around them which they can use right away. Maybe several hundreds years ago, it was the same way in Japan, but over the years, we've been so much alienated from the nature. So thinking about nature is thinking about culture and also thinking about maybe the future of this industrial or industrialized age in which we live. I think a lot of people think about baths all the time, huh? Actually, we have asked another person to be on the jury next year, who is Mr. Kundo Koyama. Because of his schedule, he just couldn't attend this event, but we've got video message from him. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kundo Koyama. So the topic next year is spa in the nature, which is personally very exciting because actually I am now trying different things to make the thought on or ceremony on spa as a part of the culture. This tea ceremony has become a part of the culture or art. So if taking a bath becomes a ceremony or art, maybe in hundreds of years, it will be part of an art or culture eventually. Now, taking a bath, this action at least in Japan, is something taken for granted. But depending on countries, in some countries, it sounds so rare to be able to have abundant water, which you can heat up the water and then soak yourself in the water. So we should be thankful if you can take a bath. And also taking a bath in Japan requires to make sure that the place is clean enough so that you can preserve the place for the next person who will take in the bath. So in a way, taking a bath will train you to be to care about the other people. So using this mechanism or the tool as a bath, we can learn many things. So I think it has a lot of capabilities and functions. So this the ceremony or the study of taking baths is a word that I coined. And I actually asked a temple in Kyoto and asked the priest to write some phrase for this. And then he wrote down this for me. And he said this study or the passage to the bath taking will make you realize new things, make you find and discover new things. You could relax yourself, of course. So taking a bath has a spiritual function, effect. On top of that, if you could take the bath in the middle of the nature, it could be more effective than going to a hospital for mentally and also physically. You could come up with a more effective facility than a hospital. I'm sure we'll be able to hear surprising ideas next year. And I can't wait to see the proposals next year as a person who is dedicated to bath taking these days. So that was the message we received. So now it was great. He talked about the bath taking and also the ceremony of bath taking, the study of bath taking. So creating, but object, people will be making an object, right? So what do you think? I don't think I should give any answer to that today because I don't want to define people's thinking. Well, next year, the relationship with the location, I think we're going to have a very, very fundamental idea about the relationship with the place because in the past, maybe we tended to focus on the design, but we have to really think of very fundamental things. Philosophical proposal probably will come up because we have to think about what is water, what is bath, what is body, what is mental. So we can come up, we can maybe see a very, very radical or philosophical and deep proposals. So bath taking is not only physical; it has a relationship with landscape, nature, and spirit and mental aspect. Professor Tsukamoto said you used the word experience, and that was important, I thought. And also, Mr. Kuno Koyama said that. And he said the studying or seeking the journey of bath means warming up the spirit or heart, and in a sense. And so I think you are. I mean, this bath taking is really experiments related. So when I say please bring in culture, I don't want to encourage people to just showcase different cultures. That was not what I meant. It's okay to feel the difference and find the difference between the Japanese culture and your culture, maybe. But through that sort of discovery, I expect people to explore ways to present different experience. So So that's probably the key in the competition. Professor Tsukamoto said that in his experience, you went to a very shabby, abandoned hop spa, and then you went in the water and you found it impossible. Wonderful. How do we judge? I don't know, but among the buildings designed by Dark's students, there were some proposals for the energy efficiency. Of course, facility was very important, but our students' proposal didn't have the facility, very, very small. Like this year, there are not so many facilities involved. And this competition, if you go back to previous page years, I think this year the facility is once again is also important, and also the passive relationship with the landscape and the people will be once again important. I think passive is very important. It is a good idea. Today, natural things, artificial things, I mean, one thing can be two at the same time. That's also interesting. At Berkeley, hot tubs are widely used in Berkeley. That's artificial hot tubs. But if you use it wisely, I mean, if you use it all the time, you start to feel you own it. If it is natural, you start to love it. So, I mean, I'm talking about the material. What kind of material in case of hot tub? Fiberglass or plastic? It's just like a pool. So you're saying that it could be interesting. Oh, it's just an example of artificial element. Professor Araya, do you have any idea about hot tub? How do you handle water, maybe? I also like hot tubs. We're all human beings, so we tend to think about religions or cultures. These are, of course, interesting, and also this spiritual thinking behind baths, like Mr. Koyama was saying. But you remember this bath the hot spa where the monkeys are there, right? You've seen it, monkeys taking baths, and you can tell that they love it. And it was funny that they make a queue. They're sitting each other, and I think they try to get salt on the skin on the other monkey, and then they take turns. So when I think about those monkeys, maybe we don't have to confine ourselves to thinking about culture or religion too much. Maybe we can create a bath where human beings and monkeys or human beings and horses can take baths at the same time. So forget about building maybe as a concept. What do you think? Taking a bath with animals, with nature, in nature. Did you take baths with monkeys? They didn't like me. They didn't like me. If I go into the bath, I'm sure they were scratching. I'm sure they didn't like it. I would love it if somebody come up with a bath where I can take a bath with monkeys or horses. Professor Tsukamoto, what do you think? And I understand it's possible to bring in the onsen hot water to the site in a tank. I think it's interesting, like a delivery service. But I think it could be interesting to think about how to boil water, how to prepare hot water. Do we want to use solar energy? Do we want to burn something in a burner or the boiler? and also how to recycle the hot water. Because if you think about the hot water, it's a reservoir of heat. So then, as Professor Bandrox was talking about, in terms of architecture, that can be a source for ideas for environmental impact. If you are to burn something, what do you want to burn? Then, if you think about the landscape around here, what other things that you can burn? So you can start connecting the bath with the landscape through many channels. I think normally the structure you will make will be limited in terms of the scale, will be small in the scale, but even if the object itself is maybe small, but the network, the ecology to make it sustainable could be the whole landscape. It's interesting to see that. In terms of environment, Professor Noshiro, what do you think? As Professor Bantrock was saying, this material is very interesting. I don't know. This would be a main element in people's proposal, but different materials have different touch. I mean, for example, if you choose a material that feels cold, chilly, it's not comfortable for bath. If you look at the industrial Japanese bathtubs, the surface is very cold, chilly. Of course, it's heat insulated, but it feels cold. And also sometimes tiles used feels cold. So I think, how do people create the surface temperature in that space? That could be an aspect that you want to pay attention to. Also today, it was windy with north wind, but you could feel the sunlight. You could feel the heat. And we did some experiment today. And if you put two glasses to double glazed windows, even during the winter time, if it is minus 20 degrees Celsius outside, it's possible to make 40 degrees Celsius hot water with solar energy alone. So this richness of sunshine in this area can be leveraged. So you don't need to burn anything all the time. You have to, maybe you can think about solar energy. What do you think, Professor Kuma? Do you have any ideas about materials used or energy, materials, and maybe mental aspect? Mr. Koyama was talking about this passage or journeys toward bath. I also am participating. He asked me to join the group. And actually, we made a bath in Tokyo Tower. On the observatory? In the observatory? So we created a temporary bath on the observatory just for one night. And we closed the observatory from public, and then that was broadcasted on TV. So I mean, he's serious. He's seriously trying to make this what he calls as a bath into an art. So what we did is we made a temporary bath on the observatory. I mean, can you imagine bringing up the whole water? I mean, the water to such a high level, it requires a lot of energy. But anyway, many things can be done. So it's limitless. You're free to do many things. What kind of bath do you like in the real world? I mean, you design baths, right? Well, one thing I can say is pool like huge, gigantic. I mean, putting aside this proposal, huge baths like a pool. That's fun. If you go to Eastern Europe, like Hungary, they have outdoor pool, which are huge, but the temperature is low. I think in Japan, the temperature of the hot water is really high in Japan, so their water is much lower in temperature. Another thing is how to operate men, women taking the bath at the same time. In Akita Prefecture, there's Nyuto Spa, and the water is really opaque, and men and women take the bath at the same time, and they have perfect operation. So water is like milk, so you can't see through the water at all, but you can see men and women, without any clothes, naked when they are going in and outside of the bath. But their operation is superb, and there's some partition to block the view for those people who are outside of the water. But once they are in the water, there's no separation. You expect so much going there, but you can't really see anything. But anyway, so I just found, there's an operation unique to, allow people, both genders taking the water at the same time. I mean, it's interesting to hear people's favorite baths. Professor Yashiro, what are the types of the baths that you like? Is there any bath that you liked particularly? The hot bath in this location, I mean, it's wonderful because somehow, maybe thanks to the mineral, your body is feel very hot for a very long time. And I actually bought some powders that are obtained from this hot water here. So I think it's great to actually take the hot spring. Professor Bandrock, what are your favorite baths? At home, the house was built after the war, and we renovated ourselves. One of the reasons was there was a Japanese person who lived the house before me, didn't build a deep hot bathtub. They had only showers. So I brought in a hot bathtub, and my husband and me. It can house two people. We can enjoy champagne or looking at the Bay Bridge, taking a bath. I could tell that you are so proud of it. Professor Araya, the monkey bath? This bath taking men and women. You said that that's but I just thought that taking a bath together, maybe not with other genders, but also taking other animals, monkeys, is also interesting. And but actually, bathroom doesn't have to be that elaborate. Bring a metal drum anywhere you want to take a bath and take a bath there. It could be interesting. It's a portable bathtub. You don't need to build anything. Professor Tsukamoto, what are the favorite types of baths? Saunas and hot springs. Many things are mentioned. What are your favorite types of baths? I mean, really, I like any type of bath, as long as it is bath. I love it. One time, I boiled water with my students using the solar power, and all of us together. It was not take bath, but we made this facility to use solar power to heat up the water so that we can take a shower together. We made this facility together, and it was in the middle. We put it in the empty land slot in the suburban area, and it's a place that you would never imagine to have people without any clothes. But we realized, here's so much sunshine. So we painted the PET bottle, plastic bottles black with ink, and we arranged them all neck to neck. And then we heated the water with the solar energy, and we took the bath. We took the shower together. What I want to say is being serviced is a great thing, but at the same time, you do it yourself to prepare the bath yourself. You prepare the whole thing yourself and then enjoy it. That's also great. Where did you take the shower? On the field? Well, there's of course the closure around us, but we didn't have any roof. There's some higher buildings nearby, but we put the closure so that they can't see us. In the video, you saw Mr. Koyama saying, maybe he wasn't really commenting exactly that, but he said this: you have tea ceremony that it has a hospitality. You will prepare for the customers. You have them enjoy the tea. You prepare the dinner for the guests. So there's a sequence of activities. Can that be applicable for baths? At one time in Kyoto, one of my students, it wasn't like a tea ceremony, and he tried to mimic what would be the bath ceremony if that existed. Maybe I should have explored. The idea explored at the time was not the exact plan was not that interesting, but the concept of bath ceremony is very interesting. So preparing or arranging the experience, not only in the facility mechanism, is also very interesting. So what Mr. Koyama was saying was really the equivalent of tea ceremony, bath ceremony. So is there any questions or comment from the floor? Well, in this place, the price of the logs are really cheap. I know some people who bought a truck full of logs, and this time typhoon came, knocked down a lot of trees. So I mean, those fuels are inexpensive. So I think heating water yourself, as Professor Tsukamoto was saying, is interesting. And there was a reference to landscape. I think just designing the bathtub is not the solution. I think you have to prepare the whole thing around it. So I hope that universities would think about the elements around the hot tub. Yeah, we're not asking people to design hot bathtub. So Mr. Ushioda, by the way, do you have any favorite types of baths? Well, years ago I went to Mongol, and they had this shelter in the middle of the field, and joint venture partner company owner and me, and also deputy mayor of the city came together, and every day we were taking sauna there. If you take the sauna with the people from other countries, it was an experience, interesting experience. In the middle of the nature, the field, yeah. I mean, that was the original inspiration for me to come up with this theme, actually. Mayor, do you have any comment? Well, the kickoff meeting every year has been so interesting, but listening to your discussion, I thought that, I mean, I was a bit nervous. I was a bit nervous when you started to talk about men, women taking the bath at the same time. It's going to be very much exciting. This bath is close to our life, and so different universities of different countries probably could be very much influenced by religions, cultures, and civilization. In our city, we have Bansen hot spring. And I hope that people will study and think about not only about the facility, the structure of the building, but also the role of the hot water plays there. Well, there was a mentioning about the tea ceremony and bath ceremony. In olden days, in tea ceremony, taking the bath was sometimes part of the whole experience. First, you receive the customer, and then you will invite the guest to bring to a wet sauna. In Kyoto, we were trying to build a building, and then we found old trace of a bath used by Nobunaga, who is one of the major samurai lords. And they would boil the water very, very hot, and they will pour the hot water on the surface or the ground and to let the steam out. At the time, which is like 700 years ago, you would create a steam bath. And so you first invite the guests to enjoy the steam bath and then have them relax, and then they are invited to enjoy the tea. So, Professor Natori.
Because discussion was really great in terms that it is opening ideas. I was worried when I read this draft brief because it is closing ideas. The first word, spa, it already closes the minds, and the brief needs to open the minds. And what I liked in this discussion is that there was so much of diverse ideas, including your fun question about which bath do you like. I like, for instance, to swim with animals very much. With fish generally. But what my advice to students would be actually try not to aim for some metaphysics, but to aim for pleasing the body. And that is an universal language. Then there is no Japan, there is no, because as far as I know, as far as my body knows, Asian body and European body and Australian body responds to pleasure. And bath is about pleasure. That is a common denominator there. Once when we are in the water, there is something deeply animal in us. And that's why we speak about separation of men and women. Baths are sensual, baths are erotic, baths are sexual. And that is not accidental. So I would just advise the students to read the brief, but not to follow, to read it just to get informed, and then to imagine, to dream what pleases the body. I think Kuma-san was the only one who explicitly mentioned the body. And that is it. We speak about nature as if nature is something outside us. But no, we are nature. We are part of that nature. And when we immerse ourselves in the water, we are immersed in an element, one fundamental element. 70–80% of my body is that water, that same water. And that is what makes us feel good. So I think if we go for our senses, not just what looks good, but what feels good, in that sensual sense, in that erotic sense, and let people enjoy. Is it going to be in the end burkini or mixed genders? I don't want to think about that for them.
ありがとうございます。どうでしょう、このいただいたコメントに対して熊さん。
Professor Kuma, what do you think? This issue of body, physical, this actually is a very important theme for the future architecture. How do you bring down this abstract level of physical and body down to something really close to us? But this is interesting. The theme is very interesting because this will provide us to a chance to bring the abstract idea about what body is, what is physical, down to something very close to our life. So it allows us to treat something really fundamental to us. Professor Briggs, what do you think?
For next generation.
I think it is a fantastic and wisely chosen topic and very evocative. And I certainly think that a culture's approach to the body is culturally pivotal. And I was thinking that many cultures have developed this of having baths together, but it is not really something public in a sense. Rather, it is that you share your privacy. And I think that is important. And then I was thinking that bath is not necessarily in water. Heat is just as important. And it has been touched upon. The Finnish sauna or Scandinavian sauna, I could say, is somewhat like that because we have only cold water. So we heat and then go in cold water. And I noticed that the desert Indians of ancient America, they had kivas where they would sweat together in order to clean the body and the mind. Obviously in the desert, having very, very scarce water resources, heat was what you would bathe in. Then Professor Tsukamoto mentioned the situation in Copenhagen and Denmark, where we don't have bathtubs anymore. And they vanished in my childhood in the 70s because of oil crisis. So heat was actually the scarce resource. So publicly they educated people to take only showers and only for 3 minutes, and if possible, together with your family in order to save water. So I think today most Danish bathrooms are conceived of pretty much like an industrial car wash facility that you enter, clean, exit. Very efficient. But we see now in some dwellings and some homes that the bathroom is sort of opened up to become part of the living area in some sense, somewhat like how the kitchen evolved in Europe from being just a production facility off side of the living area. So now it's fully integrated. So something similar is happening to the bathroom, I think. I think it's a very interesting topic.
Thank you very much. よかった。わかりましたね。
It's very interesting. 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
じゃあ他に
Any other questions or comments? I have.
ですけど、英語と日本語が微妙な差があるので、英語だと in the nature。
In the brief, there's a slight difference between the themes. I mean, spa in the nature is English, but in Japanese, spa in the field in Japanese. So we have to standardize on either one of them. I mean, I can pick any. I'm not particularly favoring one or the other, but we have to decide which one is the official one. Spa in the nature is English, but in Japanese it's spa in the field or grass field. Spa in the great nature. We don't need great. We just say spa in the nature. Yeah, standardize on the English version. Mr. Ushida, is it okay? Yeah. So we can standardize, I mean, so that we can stick to the same common concept. So we have jury members. I know students from the University of Tokyo of Fine Arts, you are here with us. Do you have any questions? I mean, as a special advantage, you should take advantage of this to ask questions directly to the jury members. Oh, great. Thank you. Well, the title is, you were talking about which one is to be picked, spa in the nature or spa in the grass field or field. Spa. This word. Why did you use the word spa instead of hot bath or bath? We wanted to, I mean, when we were having a discussion with Ushida-san, that maybe we should use the word spa instead of bath, because bath would have a very narrow connotation. So we wanted to make the word has some expansive connotation, like to include the experience side.
すみません。芸大の方も
Okay, students from the University of Tokyo Fine Arts, do you have any other questions now? Yeah. Here in this room, we have many people from other countries, so I want to ask, as a user, as a participant of this, okay, who will be visiting the bath in the future? Japanese only, or? Well, people from other countries do visit this place. I mean, I wanted to understand about the users, who will be the user profile. Okay? Professor Lavich, you have something to say. I'm sorry for making you wait.
Sorry, you know my temper, that was just a reaction. It was not some prepared. But just coming back to the word spa, and I agree with you. And I think students from Copenhagen had a very good introduction. They proposed to use verbs. So bathing in nature doesn't limit, so to say what to do in nature, but not how to do it. I think we started very much speaking about precisely, some precise options, while it is much better to speak, as they started speaking about cleansing, bathing, without linking that to any typology of doing that activity. To go back to activity, and then to open competitors' minds and to say, please advise. It can be done probably in an endless number of ways. I think that would be. And the other thing, sorry, the second comment about who would be coming there. I think, yes, again, we are discussing a lot about what to do, but where, of course, equally important. And then for whom? And when? Do we speak about all seasons? Do we speak about hot water and do we speak about cold water in summer when people want to refresh? So I think maybe an oblique entry into the competition rather than direct entry would be recommendable. But my main comment was about this, maybe bathing in nature rather than spa or whatever, onsen or whatever.
まあその辺応募者に答えてもらうのもいいと思うんだけど、まあ熊さんどう対応したらいいか、どう考えてもらえる。
What do you think, Professor Kuma? Now, the word spa and also to whom should we prepare? Do you think the students are the ones who will come up with the thing like the users? Well, I don't really care if the word would be spa or bathing, but make sure that it's left to the students to come up with a specific type of the things. And also for students, I mean, it should be left really open. We don't want to confine people to think about specific spa. I mean, the word spa is not that new. European spas have history of hundreds of years, and there's a variety of it. In Japan, when we use the word spa, it may have a very fashionable and trendy connotation, but it doesn't really have a very special image around it in English. Are you saying bathing is better or bath is better? I don't know. Bath is only bathroom. It's only bath. So spa is more expansive. I mean, actually, I just wanted to say that there's an element of medical or healthcare because there's a muscle training done in hot water or healing effect of in taking bath. So if we use the word bath, that's just a physical place where you take bath to wash your body. So we shouldn't use bath maybe. But what Professor Ravage was proposing is bathing, the action, the activity.
これを含めて来年の方がヒントに案を作ってもらえればと思います。熊さん、じゃあ最後に一言。これで、はいはい。
そうですね。今学校今12校大体やっぱり今回ねその学校の国の属している場所とか文化とかがすごく重要になってくるような気がして、はい、ぜひそういう点も。
And so next year, 12 universities will be participating, and I hope that we be able to see some influence from the regions or cultures that they belong to. So I'm looking forward to different ideas. Well, thank you so much, the jury members, the team members from Danish Academy of Fine Arts, and also we'd like to thank Professor Radbich at the same time. We are looking forward to seeing a very interesting ideas next year. And in the future, we will be posting our information on the Facebook about the progress of this competition. And in March next year, we will close the acceptance of the applications, and we will narrow down the proposals to 3, and on the 19th of April in Tokyo, we will have public final review, and then we'll select the brand prize. In January 2017, in Shinkenchiku, and also in February volume of AM Plus, the progress of the competition will be posted. And also the design activity of different universities also will be carried in Shinkenchiku February volume. And we would like to close the presentation of the grand prize this year and also next year's theme discussion.